Welcome back to BeastCoast News. And for another episode of Terps of the Beast Coast. I apologize for my absence, but there was a medical issue that arose with me, and I'm feeling much better. So, thank you for those who knew, and thank you for those who helped me out through this journey. But what can I say? When you're feeling it, you're feeling it. So we're going to jump into some information here. What's going on? I did create a new section in regards to the regards to the show itself, which is called What's Going On, Bill. So What's Going On, Bill is basically just going to give you some information on some of the bills that are currently being, on deck right now, on committees, and they're looking into passing these new laws or regulation, whatever you want to call it. As far as that goes, we're just going to highlight a couple bills. There's always something going on, but we'll talk about that a little later. I just want to make sure that if you are listening to this podcast, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. So what are we going to discuss today is, of course, New York. We're going to talk about Florida as well. We're going to talk about Vermont, and we're going to hit a little bit of New Hampshire. We'll talk about Rhode Island, and we'll talk about New Jersey. As far as that goes, let's get into it. So as far as that goes, we got Governor Hochul announces opening of the third adult use cannabis dispensary in Manhattan. Now, if you go to my episode page, there's going to be links to the full article. I'm just giving you a highlight play as far as what I feel, what's going on with the article. So there is more to the information. Not everything that I give you is the full, complete article, right? And there's links to where I received these articles so you can check them out directly for yourself. As far as that goes, same thing when it comes to the bills. I will have a track so you can go and check out the bill and see, who's writing these bills in your state, so you can reach out to them and let them know how you feel and what's your opinion about it, if this bill should not go forward or if this bill would be something that should happen. But back to what's going on right now. So they're going to be opening up a third adult cannabis use dispensary in Manhattan. Now, as far as this goes, this is going to be, it's awarded to a nonprofit conditional adult use retail dispensary that's going to be in Union Square. It's going to open up Monday coming up. So it's Saturday. I'm doing this recording, which I'm going to release. As far as I go, normally I try to do it on Friday, but wasn't feeling too much up to it for Friday, but I got it done today. So Governor Kathy Hochul today announced the opening of the third conditional adult use retail dispensary located in Manhattan, New York. The opening of the store advances New York State Seeding Opportunity Initiative and the state's goals of equity in cannabis licensing, which provide license to justice-involved individuals who are people with a cannabis conviction or close relative of someone with one, and nonprofits that serve justice-involved individuals. We're building a cannabis industry here in New York State that is equitable and delivers new resources to nonprofit that brings supportive services to our community. Governor Hochul says this is the latest milestone in our efforts to grow this industry while creating jobs and opportunity for those who historically have been disproportionately targeted for cannabis infraction. The dispensary opens in Manhattan, will operate under a license held by the Doe Store, a subsidiary of the Doe Fund, a nonprofit organization. It will be operated by Harbor Community located at 62 East 13th Street. The dispensary will be known as Union Square Travel Agency, a cannabis store. Since 1985, the Doe Fund has helped nearly 30,000 individuals break the devastating cycle of poverty, homelessness, and incarceration. Its Ready, Willing, and Able program provides paid workers, housing, comprehensive support services to homeless and formerly incarcerated incarcerated men in New York City. It will open on noon on Monday, February 13th. Initially, operating hours will be from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. So, New York is taking it step by step, this being the third one and more to open up. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how things unveil as time progresses. Let's talk about what's going on in Florida. Florida has has created this, not created, but there has been a study that was done in Florida in regards to cannabis and what's associated with the use. So, statewide analysts of death in Florida associated with cannabis use. So they're tying in things that might have happened when somebody was to believe under the influence of cannabis, or possibly they might have found the cannabis in their bloodstream, or whatever they do to figure out if you have cannabis on board. But mind you, don't forget that cannabis does stay on board in the body and within your fat cells. So this person might have not been underneath the influence, but they're somehow still going to be reflected as a number in the study. I will have a link for this article if you want to download the PDF for more details as far as how this study was done. But here's what's going on. In the United States, 49.6 million Americans aged 12 and older use cannabis, or we're just going to say cannabis, in 2020. More than 5.8 million Americans are medical cannabis patients. In Florida alone, where medical cannabis has been legal since 2014, there has been a 107.01% increase in the number of people with medical cannabis cards, from about 65,000 cardholders in 2008, now up to 788,000. That's almost a million as of January 27th. That's a big increase, right? One of the primary reasons for the continued increase in cannabis use is risk perception. Many people believe cannabinoids, plant-derived, medical, and synthetic or chemically engineered, are safe to use because they're non-psychotropic and non-psychoactive. However, for some people, cannabis can be addictive and potentially cause harm when taken with other substances such as alcohol and other drugs. Despite its wide use in the U.S. and globally, more than 200 million worldwide, little is known about the death that associate with or caused by using cannabinoids. Researchers from Florida Atlantic University Christine E. Lynn College of Nursing are the first to conduct a statewide analysis of death in Florida associated with cannabis and synthetic cannabis use, utilizing the data from Florida Department of Law Enforcement from 2014 to 2020. For the study, they examined social, demographic, characteristic, health-related conditions, presence of the substance, and the type of deaths associated with the use of these substances. Release published in the Journal of the Nursing School showed that 386 people died as a result of cannabis use, and of these, 250 cases were caused by synthetic cannabis. Nearly 65% of these cases that involve synthetic cannabis are the only drug involved. So, what that means is the man-made substance is killing people than the natural substance, which, depends on how the substance is growing. It could still be altered and still have chemical components, from using synthetic fertilizer to the point of where they're using chemicals to mitigate the plants if they have certain type of molds or viruses that are attacking the plant, so they can protect their bottom line. As I said, there's a link if you want to go into more details about the research and the information they use. There's a PDF. You got to provide some information, and they'll gladly email it to you for distribution. I did not opt to download the information because I feel as though that this research is more one-sided, being that what Florida is going through right now. They're trying to put a lot of information that is somewhat negative on cannabis. But as I said, that's just my opinion. Let's jump to Vermont. Vermont removes possible contaminated marijuana from stores. Oh, man. Sorry to hear that this happened. But Vermont Cannabis Control Board issued a consumer protection warning last week for all strains of marijuana produced by growers, Holland Cannabis Company, due to pesticide contamination. Vermont regulators have removed marijuana potentially contaminated with pesticide from 5 retail stores after consumer reported feeling sick after smoking some. Vermont's Cannabis Control Board issued a consumer protection warning last week for all strains of marijuana marijuana produced by Growers Holland Cannabis Company due to pesticide contamination. Customers who purchase marijuana grown by Holland Cannabis at the 5 particular stores are asked to return it to the retailers. The person who purchased the marijuana from the Derby store reported headaches, stomach aches, and nausea. James Pepper, chairman of the Cannabis Control Board, said Friday this product was tested and contaminated with the fungicide. So going back to what I mentioned earlier, if the plant's grown improperly or they're using, fungicide, it too can also cause harm. As you heard, the person who had some symptoms of nausea, if they had stomach aches and headaches, you never know. Imagine if somebody who has headaches all the time and they're trying to stop the headache by using cannabis, and then they smoke this cannabis that's been induced with fungicide, creating more of a headache problem. That could cause a lot of a bad situation to happen. I'm sorry to hear that, that somebody got ill from the cannabis, but in actuality, it wasn't really the cannabis. It was more of what the grower did to the cannabis. And we need to separate this in the community. We always just put everything lopsided. See what cannabis did? Nothing's wrong with the plant. It's just a matter of how the plant was grown and how the plant was produced can cause problems for people. So let's jump into what's going on in New Hampshire. New Hampshire lawmakers take up medical marijuana homegrown bill with the vote to set for next week. I've always been a component for a person who grows their own cannabis because pretty much if you know the type of strain you like and what works for you, then you can grow that versus have to be at the mercy of if you go to a dispensary, they might not have it, or if they do have it, it might not be the same consistency that you like, or all types of stuff could be going on. But a New Hampshire lawmaker worked to advance marijuana legalization. A House committee meet on Thursday to discuss a more modest reform to allow medical cannabis patients to grow their own plants for their therapeutic use. The House Health, Humane Service, and Elderly Affairs Committee held a hearing receiving testimony on HB 431 from Rep. Wendy Thomas, a Democrat, as well as other proposals to expand the state's medical marijuana program. The homegrown bill would allow registered cannabis patients and designated caregivers to cultivate up to 3 mature plants, 3 immature plants, and 12 seedlings. They would have to be grown in an enclosed locked space at a location that would have to be reported to the regulators at the Department of Health and Human Services. There is more to the article. As I said, go to my episode and there'll be a list of links so you can check it out. So my new section that I created is What's Going On, Bill? What is going on, Bill? Maine increases plant count for home cultivation. Legislative document 555 seeks to increase regulation associated with the number of mature plants cultivated in the household to 6 mature plants, 12 immature plants, and an unlimited number of seedlings if the person is 21 and older with adequate land for a person who has a permanent home on the premises. Currently, under state law, only 3 mature cannabis plants, 6 immature cannabis plants may be cultivated in a home, inhibiting the user's ability to grow larger amounts of cannabis for personal use. Well, Maine has always been progressive, and I hope that they are able to increase that, plant, because which is not wrong. It's as you say, if the person can grow their own medicine, that can greatly help them out versus depending on somebody who might be not growing the medicine the right way. The next bill here that we're talking about is RIH 412, which is in Rhode Island Cannabis Act. This act would allow marijuana products to be delivered by a Compassionate Center employee to a person located in the state that is registered with the Compassion Center. It would limit the dollar amount of the marijuana product to $300 per delivery. Delivery would be permitted by a ride share or delivery service. This act would take effect upon passage. So they want basically compassionate centers on people just to, deliver right to people who are registered with the Compassion Center. So, it's a little weird that they're setting the limit though to $300. I'm not sure if that would be a successful model where every time you drop off, how would that work? Is that limit, the dollar amount, produced $300 per delivery? So like only per delivery? So what if a patient orders, that's interesting. The next thing that they're doing in Rhode Island is RISO 125, social host regulation. This act would create a social host statute framework to address the presence of consumption of controlled substance, including cannabis, at social parties, gathering events. This act would take effect upon passage. So it looks like they're creating a framework. So, if you have cannabis at a party, you might get in trouble. I don't know. Something to look at, guys. So New Jersey authorizes medical cannabis for treatment of sickle cell anemia. So there's two bills that's pretty much addressing this. NJA 4944 and NJS 3394. This bill would expand the list of medical condition that qualifies a patient for medical use of cannabis to include sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia is an inherent blood disorder characterized primarily by chronic anemia and periodic episodes of pain. The medical use of cannabis can treat and alleviate the pain of other symptoms associated with certain medical condition. I don't know why we have to go through this, but it should have been already on the list when it comes to medical cannabis. I'm glad that they're moving forward with that. The last thing is in New Jersey, they're trying to establish a THC potency limit for cannabis product. We already know how this works. Some medical patients need a higher amounts of THC to manage the pain. If they're going to start establishing a THC potency limit for cannabis product, would that fall for medical, or are we talking about adult use? They need to be clear with this bill, because if they put this across the state, this could affect medical patients getting the medicine that they need. So I thank you guys for listening. I'll catch you next week on the next episode of the BeastCoast News.